As a reminder, if you have recently joined, this is the information session for the 2026 annual funding opportunity for organizations from the Edmonton Arts Council. I am your host, Misha Marie Nelson, the Manager of Arts Development and Investment. And that time it wasn't word salad. So third time's the charm, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk about the specifics in the application. If you've been in our system before, you will have seen that things are organized by tabs in Smart Simple. So we're going to go through them by tabs in this next little section. So I always say, everybody, have you read the guidelines? We know that over the past few years, we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community about what's in the guidelines and frankly, what's not in the guidelines. We've made some updates. So we're really hoping that this year, when you go to the 2026 guidelines, a lot of those questions that you have can be answered with that written document. So I would highly encourage you to go read it. It is intended to be a companion document to go alongside the application. There are links to other resources that are contained in the guidelines that may also help you fill out certain sections of the application. So I would encourage you to go read that. Once again, always make sure that you're eligible. If you have questions about eligibility, reach out. grants@edmontonarts.ca. It'll tell you about the intentions of the program, regular occurring arts and culture activity in the city of Edmonton, the application specifics, financial information that's required, supporting material, and we also have sections about assessment criteria and the assessment process in the guidelines. So once again, highly encourage you to read the guidelines. For the specifics about the application, this is the general tab. It is very limited. It asks you for your funding request, and it asks who is going to be your signee if you were to get funding. So funding request, this is going to answer a couple of the questions that are in the chat. So if you are an operating organization, your funding amount is related to your total operations. Those of you that have been with us a long time, you know that the city of Edmonton, many years ago, we had an agreement that imposed a cap of no more than 25% of an organization's budget could be funded through an annual investment program. We still mostly stick to that, understanding that in the last few years with COVID, things have shifted a little bit. So the expectation should never be for more than 25% at any time. If you are a multi-million-dollar organization, there's no way that we could fund you to 25% of your budget. So you also have to be reasonable in that. So it is a sliding scale. There's no like specific formula based on XYZ. It is more of a holistic understanding. But consider that if you're in that millions of dollars budget, you're probably looking at more like less than 5% of your operational budget is reasonable. If you are kind of one of those mid-range organizations, like up to, $500,000, $750,000, probably no more than 10% is a reasonable amount. And if you are a very, very small organization, it's that balance of, maybe up to that 25%, but also recognizing that we would never fund 100%, and that doing that risk reward about is the work of this application commensurate to the money that you would be receiving. Generally speaking, our lowest grant amount is around $1,000, and there are plenty of organizations that get about that amount. Okay, so if you are programming, all of those same things apply, but for your arts activity amount of your budget, not your whole operational budget. Okay, I think that math makes a lot of sense. So that would be the difference. There was a question in the chat about operating and programming. So operating is the consideration of your entire budget, because if your mandate is for arts and culture activity, then that's all that you do. If you are a programming organization, you only do some activity in the area of arts, and therefore that would be the portion of the budget that we would be looking to fund. I hope that clears that up for most people. I know we had a question about timeline. We will get there, so I encourage you to hang in there. Background and facility operation. So there are two tabs in the application that come directly from your organizational profile. They're your organization background, which is essentially consider that your introduction to the assessors. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Some of those pieces have been updated, but the biggest thing is if your mandate has shifted at all, please make sure that you've made that update. A lot of organizations in the last 5 years have actually modified what they do or maybe shifted slightly in how they approach their work. So make sure this is updated for your organization to reflect your current work. We've also added a couple questions around, do you run a festival? Because we recognize that that wasn't necessarily clear and may have been having to be embedded in a narrative section and got lost. So there are some specific questions there about festival work and what you do as a festival, and frankly, what the definition of a festival is according to the city of Edmonton to help you guide answering that question. If you have any questions about updating that profile, like I said, please do reach out. In the facility tab, once again, this pulls exactly from the profile. So if you go to that tab and you do not run a facility, click no. Just click no. It's okay. You don't have to do that. It's really hard. We don't want everybody to run a building. We're not all good at it. It's okay. You do your thing. Building operations people, you do your thing. If you operate a facility or multiple facilities, please click yes and fill out that information. And then it'll just pull directly into the application so you don't have to fill it out again. These are pieces that we're assuming don't change annually, which is why they live in the profile. Anything that would change annually for your organization, we've put into the application for you to fill out. So we're hoping that that delineation is fairly clear. But consider these two things kind of your introduction to assessors. They may not have heard of your organization. That is okay. This is your opportunity to tell them about you. The next tab that you're going to see is the financial data tab. This is updated. I'm not going to go with different. This is updated from previous years. The big update is we're not asking you for many years of funding. We are no longer asking you for 2 years of projections. We're not asking you for complicated history. We're asking you to upload your financial statements for your most recently completed year and then fill out our financial fields in correspondence with that amount. So if your fiscal year is, say, June to June, you would upload your financial statements from June 2024 to June 2025 that are theoretically signed by your board, and you would fill out the form for that year. When you upload, it will say 2025 on it. We have a naming scheme in place because our research department will take that financial statement and use it for their economic assessment. So it's labeled 2025 because that's when you've given us the information, not because that's when your fiscal year is. We're asking you for your fiscal year, and you are only going to give us one fiscal year. We've done this because we recognize that projections are really, really hard in the current economic situation. And we don't want you to be forced into a situation where you're trying to overpromise. It's not good for anybody. So tell us what you've done, and we're going to go with that. We need your financial statements. We need a proof of filing. Sometimes it's called an annual return. It depends on what kind of organization you are. It's whatever you've got from like Alberta registries, or if you're registered on the national level from the Government of Canada that says that you have filed. And then you complete those fields in the financial form. In the guidelines, there is a companion document if you're filling in the financial form that tells you what line 4335 means, or tells you what line 6125 means. These are in alignment with the fields in CADAC. If you are a CADAC organization, do not fill out our online form. In fact, it won't even populate for you if you filled out that you're a CADAC organization in your profile. Okay. That being said, this is a grayed out slide. If you're not in CADAC, don't listen to this information. If you're in CADAC, this is the Canadian Arts Database. Please know to update your stuff in CADAC. It will be there. We will pull it from CADAC. We are not using the statistical data, but CADAC does. So please fill that out in full. And our financial form aligns with the CADAC financial form. So please do fill it out in CADAC. CADAC agents are also there to help you as you do that work. And it also needs to be done by that December 15th deadline so that the CADAC agents can work with your information and verify it on the same timeline for our assessment. So CADAC for everyone is not required by the Edmonton Arts Council, but it is required by other funders, which is why some of your companion organizations are involved with the Canadian Arts Database. For us, it's not a requirement. Don't think that you have to do that. That's not what we're saying. Fill out the form as it is. Any questions about those pieces, the financial form, how we're collecting that data this year, and the Canadian Arts Database? 1 year financial statements, good? no projections, your fiscal year. That's the highlights. Okay. I want to make sure that that's clear for everybody. Structuring capacity. This tab has existed before in our application. So we ask for things like I said, those policy suites. That's a new and updated question in accordance with our investment strategy. That's something that we're looking for to look at your operational effectiveness, what you value, how your work unfolds. We ask for your most recent AGM minutes, and we're asking for this graphic of your organization. What we're finding is that some organizations really benefit from a visual that shows how their structure works. I want to be clear, we do not all work the same. Some of you are powerhouse organizations that are run only by volunteers. Some of you have a lean, mean staff of 1 to 3 people. Some of you have 75 staff and you're running, 5 different spaces. You're not all the same. Asking for this graphic is not meant to freak you out. It is meant to give you an opportunity to show what the differences are. For example, we have seen a structure of organizational leadership that is done in the style of a medicine wheel. And it explains how their board and their staff and their volunteers all work together and cover things. One of my favorite, we've got an organization that has a tri-leadership model, and they do theirs as a Venn diagram. And their board is in the middle about what they cover, that each of those people's role covers. I've seen one that, it's a graphic org chart, exactly. I've seen one that's a flower, but also the little flow chart boxes, which is how I would do mine, because that's how my brain works. So there's no expectation, but it's just an opportunity if you do have an alternative structure of how your board and your staff and your volunteers work together. Please take the opportunity to tell us about it. Words aren't always enough. And once again, if you have a literal linear structure that's very clear, also just do that. There's no expectation. It's also for us to figure out information about our sector and see what different types of leadership models everybody is working with. We're asking you for your board specifics. This question in the last couple of years, we did have a different eligibility point around boards last year that some of you have noted that we are no longer going with. So the board specifics, we recognize that the understanding of your board varies in importance depending on what your board does. So we've now given you a table in the profile to tell us a little bit about your board. How long have they been on your board? What are the roles that they hold? Do you have committees? A little biography. I'm not talking about like the biography that you would put with your headshot in the program for your play. I'm talking about a little so-and-so has experience in governance. Their regular job is an accountant, and that's what they help us with in their role in our board as our financial officer. Perfect. Amazing. It's just to give that understanding that your board is well-rounded, that your board is real, and that when you talk about the way your board and your staff and your volunteers work together, there's an understanding of how they fill those roles. So please fill in that table in the profile and it'll pull right into your application so you don't have to fill it out every time. Once again, theoretically, hopefully your board is not flipping over every single year. Maybe a couple people are changing, but generally a lot of you, some of you I know have board members that have been there for over 30 years. I know that. I've read the stats. You're amazing. Those board members are incredible. Please give them cake and parties and everything. we need people that are that invested. And a lot of you are founders, right? And you're the founders of your own organization. That's the kind of thing that we want to find out through that information. If you have staff, some of you don't. If you have staff, we ask you for some specifics. It is whatever your organization considers staff. We understand that there's a CRA definition of staff. That's not necessarily what we're looking for. What do you call staff in your organization? Who are the staff and what would you call them? You're going to have a section for volunteer specifics and also artists and arts workers. So these are now separated out differently. I believe we used to have a big narrative box that was like, tell us about how your staff and volunteers work. It was a lot to try to fit into one narrative. So we've really broken it out to make it clearer about what we're looking for. The artists and arts workers section is anything that you wouldn't consider staff, but people that you contract. Contract is also a very broad word. Sometimes that includes monetary contracting. Sometimes that's other type of contracting. Please tell us about the artists and arts workers that you engage with. Sometimes if you're a service organization, that might be that you engage with them for mentorship or providing services or providing space. This is very common in our sector. So we just really wanted to give you a separated section to tell us that story and how you do that work. You can also tell us about how you determine funding, compensation, if you're affiliated with professional organizations, and that's how you contract artists and arts workers. There's space there to tell us anything about that narrative. Okay. All of this speaks to how your organization is doing, how you're managed, how you're governed, and how the work is being accomplished with the amazing and limited resources in some ways that you have. Because we know that our industry runs on people more than it does anything else. Any questions about that section before we move on? Okay,
Sorry,
great.
can you just,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry. I was kind of sidetracked when answering an urgent question. Can you speak to the board specifics, what you require there? Because I mean, we've needed to provide this information before with the members, but I'm sorry, I apologize. I missed that
No
part.
worries. It's actually, I can make it so simple. It's actually in the profile now. So when you go to the profile, you're going to have that introductory page, and then you're going to have a page on your operations, and it'll ask you for some documentation. And then there's a table that's going to ask you for this year. It used to be an upload, a PDF upload, and it was like, what should be in this? We've now made it a table, and it'll ask for board role, years of service, name, their postal code. Once again, that's something for the city of Edmonton to like map how people are involved in the arts. And then a section about just a short biography, you know, 20 words, 50 words, not long, about each of those people. And it's all laid out in a table so that you can actually just add as many people that are on your board. And that information is clearly asked for. So you're not guessing about what information we want. Hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, that's exactly it. Is we've tried to eliminate the guesswork, because that's exactly what we found. Is people are like, well, what do you actually want? We've now told you exactly what we want in columns and table form. I don't love guesswork. I feel like you guys are doing enough stuff that I don't want to keep you guessing.
Thank you.
No problem. Great question. Activities and work. Okay. So this section, once again, we've always had feedback that we've heard is that this huge narrative field where we have to list all of our activities is really unruly and hard to organize. We agree. It is now a table. So we're asking you for your annual report if you have one. I want to remind you that an annual report doesn't have to be a big, shiny thing. An annual report could be your artistic director's report to the board from your last AGM. An annual report could be the flyer that you give to your sponsors thanking them. An annual report could be something that you have for promotional material. Annual report is it's actually a pretty broad term. We've added some text there, but this is more just like, do you have a thing already that tells us how your year went? Okay. In addition to your AGM minutes, it doesn't have to, we're not looking for something super formal here. Don't go out and hire a graphic designer to do an annual report. That's not what we're asking. It's whatever you have that has that summary. It's just, once again, another place to maybe put something like that. Once again, our organizations are a variety of sizes and structures. You may not have one. That's fine. There's nothing saying that you have to. It's just a place to put it if you do. Then we have this activities and work table. What I'm going to remind you is that there is work that we do in the arts that isn't just events. I think sometimes we get really caught up with it has to be the shiny front-facing public production performance thing. A lot of us are service organizations. A lot of us are professional membership organizations. A lot of us, there is admin work that is community work. So activities and work is meant to encompass those things. So maybe your organization is one that provides internship and professional development support. Tell us about that. If you're an organization that does regular work, say weekly rehearsals, knock, knock, knock. I see all you choirs and bands in this chat, and community theater organizations. You do not need to list every weekly rehearsal. September to May, 11 weekly rehearsals, 30 people come, whatever that is, chunk it out, make it make sense for you. If you're really struggling with that table, please reach out and call and ask, but we are trying to make it a little bit more straightforward so that you don't have to collect statistics in a weird way, that we're really telling you what we want and what we want to see. We are asking for those activities for the year of 2025. We understand that that does not necessarily match with your fiscal. This is what the city of Edmonton wants. This is what the city of Edmonton gets. The year 2025. We understand that that's a little bit different than it has been in the past. So just make sure that you see all those headings and you read those things. Then we have a separate section at the bottom that's for 2026. So 2025, we're asking for impact to specific communities. This is a question that we have asked in the past, but this way looks a little bit different. And we're asking how you measure your success in your work as an organization. Once again, self-determination, not how we measure your success. We want you to be able to tell us how you measure your success. Our ecosystem is vast. You do not all have to do the same work. In fact, you shouldn't do the same work. It would be a very boring city if we did. So this is your opportunity to tell us about you and the work that you do. If our annual report is for the fiscal year and not a calendar year, is it still valid? Yes, absolutely. Annual report is a reflection of you. But that activities list has to be that January to December. I do not want you creating a new annual report. Whatever you have is good. And we will navigate with the assessment on this side. Yeah, great question. Great question. Then it's going to ask you for your 2026 activities and work. It's a little bit shortened. What we are working towards is having this kind of information populate into your new application. And then you can just tell us what's different in 2027. So we're working on that. We know this year it's going to feel like a lot, but we're working on those things. It's still a table format. And we're looking for those potential impacts to specific communities as well. And then if there's any changes, so if going into 2026, there's significant changes to your work, this isn't, our festival is still 5 days, but we're adding like one extra dance segment. This is more like we're bringing on a new partner, or we're doing a second festival, or we are an ensemble organization and we're adding our 7th ensemble, things like that, like significant changes to how you're going to be doing your work. And like I said, the statistics are not separate now. Every one of those questions has statistics embedded in it so that you don't have to enter a separate statistics table. Okay. Essentially, activities and work is basically a way to say, like, you've told us what your mandate and your mission is. Are you doing those things? Should be correlated, should be reflective of what you say that you do, not what you think we want you to do, what you actually do. Okay. Any questions about activities and work before we go on?
If I can just go back a second to the CADAC zone.
Sure.
I'm just curious because you mentioned that EAC doesn't look at projections, but Canada Council required us to
Correct.
do projections for 5 years. So does the EAC not look at those at all, or
this year we're not going to be providing that information to assessors.
Okay. So when you take it from CADAC, it's just the completed fiscal year and the notes that go with that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. Great question. And we know that this is a shift. Once again, we're trying to lower our barrier to entry a little bit because we know that there's a lot, basically. We know that there's a lot that you all are doing. That's a really good question. I have another question in the chat. That says, what do you mean by specific communities? It's in the application. So we're really talking about that inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. So there are specific identified communities that are part of Statistics Canada, and our research team has put in specific questions about those. So they are listed in the application, Diane. And if when you're filling that out, you have specific questions about that question, please do reach out once you're in there. Yeah. You also have the community that you serve. So tell us about your community as well, what your focus is. But we do have some questions about equity intersections as well in our work. Anything else in activities and work before we talk about supporting material?
Yes. So another question about the communities that we serve.
Sure.
So what about audience members who we don't collect data on?
We do not ask you for demographics on your audience. No. Okay. No. But if you have targeted audience outreach, tell us about that.
Okay.
Because if your organization, that might be part of your mandate, right? We have, can I say that out loud? I can. We have an organization that part of their mandate is working with social service partners to offer free tickets to specific communities. That is their mandate. So we want to see that thing, which is really imperative to their work. If that's not you, that's okay. Tell us about the work that you do. Yeah, hopefully that helps. And like I said, specific questions along the way, please email us at grants@edmontonarts.ca. As well, book a draft application assistance meeting, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Supporting materials, they are required, okay? Put something in this section. You may not think it's important, but once again, the assessors might not know who you are. And yes, we can go spelunking on your website and your social media and all those kinds of things, but it's much more valid if you tell us what you want us to know, as opposed to having everybody kind of trying to dig around for more information about what you do. I want to encourage you to be your creative selves. If you tell us that your organization is a performance organization, please show us a performance. And I'm not saying put up your 2.5 hour musical. You don't need to do that, but give us something, right? Most of us these days carry a camera in our pockets. It doesn't have to be polished. This doesn't have to be your promo information. Okay. This is for you and the assessors to communicate about what you do. It's not information that will be publicly shared. We would never take something from supporting material and just put it out there. If our communications department is doing something specific where they want to show something, they're going to reach out to you and get you to sign a waiver. Okay. So just know that this is all private information. It's protected in our confidentiality agreements with assessors. So, feel free to share stuff in that section. Video, audio, PDF documents, you can have direct links. So we have your website, it's in your profile, but maybe there's a really flattering media article on your organization and something that you've done recently. Directly link us to that in your supporting material. Maybe there's a great project that you've recently done with a partnership organization and they've written a testimonial for you, talking about what a great community partner you are. Put that in your supporting material. Maybe you are a support organization for professional artists and somebody wrote you a glowing email telling you what a great time they had in your mentorship program. Put that in your supporting material. These are the pieces that just everything you've now told us in the other tabs of your application. Supporting material should be the place where it all lands and comes together and we see the evidence of all of that work. I know this might be new to some of you, and depending on the other funders that you apply to, you might not even be allowed to upload that kind of information. And we understand that. We understand also that that's a restriction. I'm an independent artist as well. I really love when it's you may submit one photo and one PDF of 2 pages. It's like, oof, but we do so much. Tell us the much, okay? Recognize that assessors only have a certain amount of time. For organization applications, we say about an hour. So you want to make sure that they're not on a wild chase for information, but give them something to see. And we also appreciate that in the portal itself, it shows up as a gallery. So it is also very visually impressive to have some things in that supporting material section. And it really does help assessors understand more about what's unique about your organization and the work that you do. So application specifics. Once again, if you want somebody to go through your application with you, you can through draft application assistance, email grants@edmontonarts.ca. Those slots do fill up. We do have some protected slots that we'll be releasing closer to, because we also know how it is. But remember, the deadline is December 15th, Monday at noon. December 15th, Monday at noon. Thank you. I love seeing your mouths move. It's the best. So if you're heading towards that deadline and you're looking at your time and planning, please make sure that you are booking those meetings ahead of time and reaching out to our team, because we do want to talk to you. In fact, talking to you all is kind of the best part about this job, to be perfectly honest.